Welcome to Earth, a Love Story. I'm your host, Robin Lassiter. This is a solo episode, and we're going to talk about nuance, complexity, both and in an either-or world. And the first thing I have to say, you might find shocking in our current landscape, but I believe it with every bit of my multidimensional self. I have faith in humanity. I believe in us. I believe that there's a collective of us ready to hold previously unimaginable complexity as we watch the horrors unfold and as we do everything we can to stop them. I believe that there's a collective of us who are ready for complex, high-level teachings. And I believe that as we take action to counter the meta-crisis that we see unfolding in front of us, I believe that we must do that from the aspect of us that embodies the most integrity, the most wisdom, the most understanding, and the most compassion. And I believe that the whole of us will get through this together, even if we hold wildly different ideologies and religious and political beliefs. Somewhere, somehow, we have to rise above the division. We have to rise above the entrenched belief systems that dehumanize each other. Somehow we have to make a different choice. And I believe that we can do that, if only because of some core foundational truths. That I am not safe until everyone is safe. That the only way out is through. And that I'm not free until everyone is free. Combine that with another core foundational truth, the truth that the universe loves diversity in all of its forms, and we might be onto something. Is it possible for us to be true to ourselves and also allow other people to be true to themselves? I don't think we're going to move the needle by demanding that we all have the same path, the same beliefs, the same ideals, or that we take the same actions. And I believe, as edgy as it is to say during this tremendously divided and sensitive time, that we have much more in common than we think. Mother Teresa once said, or I don't know, maybe she didn't say it, but someone said she said it, and I've adopted it as something to aspire to. When asked if she would attend an anti-war rally, she said no, but invite her when there was a peace rally. Buckminster Fuller said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." And apparently, Einstein said something like, "You cannot solve the problem from the place that the problem was created." Ready for the paradox? I believe that sometimes we have to fight. Sometimes we have to stand up and say something is not okay. Sometimes we have to stop something or some system from doing something horrendous. The question is, where are our hearts as we're doing that? Are we spitting vitriol, abandoning complexity and nuance, collapsing the narrative, dehumanizing other people, taking other paths, ending up fighting war energy with war energy? Or can we take a stand while holding a nearly unimaginable level of compassion in our hearts? I think that we can. Turns out the highest move, our biggest resource, is our ability to love, along with the wisdom and capacity to hold that love in the face of all manner of challenges. And as we know, and lest we forget, along with the horrors, there is beauty too. We are multidimensional beings, and if we remember and claim that, we don't have to cut out any parts of us that disagree. I can hold joy and grief. I can be furious at the atrocities unfolding in the world and let that rage bloom into a compassion that holds everyone, even the oppressors. We can be soft and strong. We can experience subtle worlds that weave into this one. We can decenter waking reality as the only real world and begin to let our dreams and vision and the ever-arising phenomenon that is life herself inform all of who we are. We can be astonishingly courageous for ourselves and others, letting our natural sense of protection and care rise out of us in the face of injustice as a guttural scream of acceptance of the pain and suffering in our world. And then allow that scream to turn to tears and then to a strength of conviction that surprises me still. I've died to myself and the world and to old, unloved, and abandoned timelines 1,000 times, and every time I've risen again. We, all of us, die but don't die every moment of the day. Each now rises and falls, and life is a continual letting go, a continual death practice. If we can surrender to that truth with grace, we enter a state of presence where instead of moving through life, we are the space which life moves through. We can embody a deep knowing in our bones that death is actually quite safe. And here's some more paradox. That as we come to realize that death is safe, we might get the idea that we can play this life like a video game and keep coming back and do whatever we want without consequence. The danger in realizing that death is safe exists if we haven't yet let the truth of suffering in. Life without grief and suffering, paradoxically, becomes meaningless. Death without remembering that we all belong to each other, that we are deeply connected to each other, and that every action touches the web and has a consequence that affects not only ourselves but each other, becomes hollow. In that way, we are in danger of making even death dead, and our guardrail to prevent this lies in the first noble truth. Suffering exists. If we can just let that one fully sink in, life becomes a game of compassion and care. Life becomes a game of love, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Suffering and grief and the compassion that arises in response to these truths are the necessary prerequisites that make the reality of the death, birth, death cycle one that makes this life precious instead of meaningless. So basically, this podcast episode, what I felt really called to say today is just saying what it seems like I'm always saying, maybe in a slightly different way. But I needed to say it again and louder, particularly the part about dehumanizing each other, about getting entrenched in either or belief systems, about pointing the finger at others, about calling out where we see others have fallen down without holding in our hearts the knowledge that we're all in this together. And I know that in many ways, Earth, a Love Story is supposed to be an experiencer podcast, and it is. It's for us weirdos who play on the fringes and in the wildly unsettling liminal spaces, and who've seen and experienced some crazy shit. And also, it's for all humans, because I think that we're basically the same. I think as we do the slow and tender work of reclaiming our exiled and abandoned parts, we begin to reclaim some sort of intrinsic humanness that we've forgotten. That as humans, we all have access to other worlds that exist fully beyond the ability of our rational minds to imagine. As the purple-robed being told me when I was walking with her through the lavender sphere, all of our bodies need to be vibrating at similar frequencies, or we're unable to cross the threshold into a new paradigm. It seems to me that it is our physical and emotional bodies that are asking for the most attention and attunement right now. And just like no one is free until everyone is free, and no one is safe until everyone is safe, it seems that our astral bodies, for example, or our causal bodies, can only go so far if we leave our physical or emotional bodies behind. We're not going anywhere without all parts of us. The physical body is the densest, and the emotional body is woven through that and expressed in and by our nervous systems. And as we do the work of aligning all of our bodies, of healing our physical bodies, our emotional bodies, there is the promise of the return of that lost aspect of our humanity. The ability to have mystical experiences, the re-enchantment of our worlds and realities, the ability to commune with unseen beings, the ability to travel in our dreams and outside of our bodies. The strange paradox here is that the more embodied we are, the more our physical and emotional bodies can move and flow and become unstuck, the higher we can go into these other realms. And I think that we're going to need those other realms. We're going to need the beings that exist there. We're going to need communion with them and with the dead and with the spirits of land and place and with our safe and bright ancestors and with our own multidimensional selves in order to get through what's coming on this planet. And don't get me wrong, just like I have a tremendous amount of faith in humanity, I am also wildly, illogically optimistic. I think we're going to get through what's coming. I think we're in for a rough ride for a few years as the meta crisis continues to unfold, and I hope I'm wrong about that. Either way, reconnecting with all aspects of ourselves and with the unseen worlds seems vital if we are, at the very least, to bring joy and vitality and magic and wonder and enchantment back into our lives. If we are to connect with our stunning planet and all of her diversity and wonder, if we're truly to be alive in our lifetimes, we're going to need all parts of ourselves, and we're going to need to reconnect to the things that we've forgotten. And finally, I've realized lately that I'm constantly contradicting things on this podcast, or I'm saying things that are in kind of a half-formed place, like talking about the course that I'm creating. It's definitely there. It's definitely percolating. I'm definitely working on it. But when I talk about things before they're finished or before I am solidly aligned with them in my bones, in all of my bodies, things change and shift. It's especially true when I boldly declare some big plan that I have, and then I watch that plan change and shift and think, fuck, should I go back and correct what I said before so that it looks like I have my shit together? Well, no, I shan't be doing that. Instead, I'm just learning not to say I'm going to do something unless I'm certain it's the case, unless it's finished cooking. And I'll most likely be declaring these things on Patreon or in my newsletter so that I haven't left this weird vocal podcast record of me wildly vacillating between a bunch of different timelines and options. I'm also saying this because I am fairly certain my relationship with social media is changing for good, coming up pretty soon. And even as I say that, I know that there I go saying things like they're decided instead of just sitting in the tension of the unformed future. And I think all of this is part of me getting used to the fact that it's harder and harder to future cast as I become more aligned with the present moment. And I think that there's a lot of us going through that. Timelines are changing really quickly these days. Part of what we're learning to do is sit with that tension of the unformed future and act when it's appropriate to act and be able to hold a steadiness through it all. And also, I think that everything I've been talking about is just part of my nature. It makes me think about that verse from that Ani Franco song, Evolve, where she goes, "So I walk like I'm on a mission because that's the way I groove. I got more and more to do and I got less and less to prove. It took me too long to realize that I don't take good pictures because I have the kind of beauty that moves." Love that. You should all go listen to that song, Evolve by Ani Franco. It's a good one. So until next time, my friends, a little itty bitty episode to hold us over until the next guest, who I believe will be Perdita Finn, the author of Take Back the Magic. Such a beautiful book. If you haven't read it, highly recommended. And she'll be on the podcast soon. Really looking forward to that. Thank you for all of your support. Thank you for listening and for sharing your own stories and resonances. Thank you to the patrons who support this podcast so much. And thank you to Morgan Jenks, who provides our musical soundscapes. For more information about any of those things or to book a one-on-one session with me, please visit honeyheart.org.